This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network. Presented by Hearthside Bank.
What are your favorite big game wins for Tennessee? We'll tell you what ours are next.
Go.
Welcome in to Give Him Six, the third version of this show that we have done here on the Sports Source Digital Network. I'm John Pennington, joined by John Wilkerson from 99.1 The Sports Animal. Folks can hear you Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. Also, it's almost baseball season. And when people watch this, it may be baseball season in 6 months. But, John, you got the fall baseball coming up. And, of course, folks can hear you there on the Sports Animal.
Yeah, great to be back, and can't wait to get to today's list.
Excellent. And right there, bringing the energy today, former Vols quarterback Sterling Henton, who has become a fixture. When I look up and UT's putting out a video now, and the point person is Sterling Henton, I'm like, he's replaced. I think they're going to take down the torchbearer and just do a new statue of Sterling out there.
They might make me get a facelift.
And of course, Sterling.
Torch in one hand, making sure the headphones stay put
That's
with
right.
the other.
Sterling, of course, the man that drives Neyland Stadium in terms of energy. You do the same thing with the Sports Source during football season, which I appreciate you. We've been working together now. The first year. You were there in 2003.
Yeah, man.
And who knows, that first game you were on may be on our list today, which our list today is our favorite, which means we're all going to have different lists. We could have done best, and it's like, it's not fun. That doesn't cover as many games. This show is always going to be about a trip down memory lane. Names or games that we haven't talked about that maybe you haven't thought of in a while. Just if you're a Vol fan, these are the things that pop in your memory. And today's list, favorite big game wins for Tennessee from 85 to last year. What's a big game? I had to define that, so we're calling it bowl games, championship games, or games against the top 10 opponents. So there may be a great Tennessee win over Alabama or Florida, but Alabama was ranked number 11. That doesn't make our list. We'll do that another day. That'll be a different day.
Yes.
So what we're going to do here is I will start, and we're going to I'll run through my list, see if you guys agree with it. Then we'll get the games that were on your list that I didn't cover, so we'll do it that way. And as always, subscribe to this channel to get more content like this. We've got tons of content on the channel already. But subscribe to get more content, notify, like. That helps other Tennessee fans find a channel like this. Yeah. But also, tell us what your favorite big game wins were. We got a comment section. You tell us what we got wrong. Tell us what you would have put number one or number two. Give us your whole 6-person or 6-game countdown. All right. Give him 6. Let's do. Number 6 for me, I started with a game, and again, these are all personal lists. So a lot of mine are going to be back to my college days or my early TV days. 1992, I am working at WBIR, and I am on the sideline with another photographer there named Larry Long, and the sky is open at Neyland Stadium, and there is so much rain that the drains can't handle it. And it's the Florida game, 1992. Tennessee won it big, 31-14. It was a wow moment when you're starting to see Phillip Fulmer as the interim coach. It's like, good grief, this guy's not going to lose. So that Florida game to me is an all-time favorite simply because I remember all the rain came in like 15 minutes and then it stopped, but the drains didn't work. So standing on the sideline and down in the end zone, the water was up to your shin. I mean, it was wild down there. I've never seen anything like that in terms of just a massive microburst. But to me, that one is number 6 on my list, that 92 Florida game, simply because of that rain. You remember that one?
Oh, very much so. But that one didn't make my top 6, but still, I mean, everything that you point to, the fact that, this was before they put the grass back in.
Yes.
So, it is a turf field,
turf.
and it is a drenched carpet, and it is a sunken carpet.
Yeah, it was, but of course they build it on the kind of the hill, the arch there, so it'll drain. Mm-hmm. But I remember there were shots we got of the drains just, they were swirling like a whirlpool, but it was so deep it couldn't get out. Anyway, so that's my number 6. Florida, 1992 in the rainstorm. My next one. Now this one, just a fantastic game. I remember going with my father as a kid. 1985. Sports Illustrated is on hand to write a story about Bo Jackson and number 1 Auburn.
Yeah.
They don't write their story about Bo Jackson. On the cover is Tony Robinson, and they're talking about the Tennessee Waltz.
Yeah,
Tony
man.
Robinson and Tennessee upsets Auburn. It was 38-20. I think that thing was 38-7 at one point. Auburn got some junk touchdowns at the end, but Robinson could not be denied that day. Everything he threw was caught. Tim McGee, Eric Swanson, I believe, had one. Darn near everybody on the team caught a touchdown pass, and he had a couple of electric runs that really put Tennessee on the map for that year. Tennessee had flirted with being back under Johnny Majors. I think they had a 9-3 season a couple years before, but nothing really stuck. And this was one where everyone, the nation's eyes were on that number one team and future Heisman winner Bo Jackson, and he wound up taking himself out of the game. And he's probably
Took himself out.
Took him out. Yeah. So
Seen enough.
Sterling, do you remember that game where you were
I
still
went
in high school?
and it's amazing. I was just sharing with Big John here about how the relevance of that game means so much to me, because we had just finished my high school game. And so we're walking home after the game and go through downtown Passaic. We always stop at the Sports Center. And, man, they had the game on, and we came inside the Sports Center and watched the game on TV, which was my first association to actually hug the University of Tennessee, because people forget back then you had maybe 1 or 2 college football games on.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't like it is now when you have 100 games on every time slot. And so when I saw T-Rob doing this thing, remember Tim McGee catching the touchdowns, and we walked into the Sports Center at the exact same time Bo Jackson took himself out. And it was like, whoa, they said, something's wrong with him. He's walking on the side. Did he take himself out? Of course, when I got down, they realized he had taken him out, but they didn't publicize that on the TV.
Oh, yeah.
And wow. And so that game, I'll never forget. Didn't see T-Rob on the Sports Illustrated cover. Woo-hoo, sweet.
We actually have a giant copy of that cover on one of our other sets here, the barroom set. For anybody that didn't live through that era and never saw Tony Robinson play, that would probably be the game where I would say, take a look at this. I don't want to sidetrack this, but I always thought if he had remained healthy, if he hadn't fallen into trouble, Tony Robinson could have been Randall Cunningham in the NFL. I mean, that was the style of player that he was. He could move, he could throw. He was a special player.
Awesome anticipation, something he never got credit for. His anticipation of a route coming open and then pinpointing that pass was just uncanny back then. And I'm a young guy looking up to him at the time. Yeah. And people forget, scoring 38 points in a football game back then was phenomenal. It was nothing like it is right now. Everybody lined up, playing PlayStation. He was doing that back then. Yeah. It was no pro right, 2 backs.
Well, especially against a Pat Dye team back then. I mean, they were known for their defenses. Yeah.
And that defense had got 4 first-round draft choices on it. Andre Bruce. Keep it going.
I remember that Rick Riley was in town to write the story. Of course, he went on to great things, but he was just a writer at Sports Illustrated at the time, a game writer. And he was talking about they had gone to the I formation that year at Auburn to get Bo Jackson to really set him up more. Mm-hmm. And I remember he wrote, one of his lines was, "Here's Tennessee mud in your eye, Bo," because of Tennessee beat him up. All right, that was number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list, if you go back and watch it, and that may be another show we do here at some point, but if you go back and watch this game, it's ugly. It was an ugly game. Oh. The offense stunk in this game I'm talking about. T. Martin was not good at all. Turnovers all over the place, and you won it because the other guy missed a field goal. That doesn't sound great, but it's the 98 Florida game. And you hadn't beaten Florida in 5 years, 6 years? That sets you up for a national championship run, and it will forever, in my mind, be remembered. That was the week I moved to Columbus, Ohio. So I am literally sitting there with another buddy of mine, Mike McCormick, who does some work on this channel. I'm at his house, and we're watching that game, and it's like, oh, now they win. I move up here. And the girl I was dating, I was like, oh, man, I hope she's not having too much fun after the game. But anyway, the 98 Florida game, and it will forever be remembered as a broadcaster, one of the all-time great. You got a great call when I can just say a couple of words years later and it sticks. Pandemonium reigns. One of the greatest John Ward calls ever.
Oh, storming the field, the goalpost coming down, camera winds up in the river.
Barry Rice and the guys at UT do the thing. It was they made fun of the MasterCard ads at the time, that it was like cost of a new camera, such and such, cost of this, such and such. beating Florida, priceless.
Priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Is that on your list?
It is not on my list.
Wow,
But,
you got a tough list. Okay.
But again, it's
personal
our
favorites. Yep.
Yeah, so without question impactful, but
Yeah.
that is the game where I'm convinced that that's where Jimmy Hyams thought that the press box was just going down. That there was such a reaction to the missed field goal and pandemonium beginning to reign.
Yeah, exactly.
That it was just, the facility itself was shaking. Yeah. So without question, one of the biggest wins in terms of just the reaction to it and what it eventually led to.
Yeah. Sterling?
The city didn't sleep to that Monday. People don't forget. People were out after the game all Saturday night, all day Sunday. Churches were empty. People didn't go to sleep until Monday after that game.
Yep.
And that was just an awesome win. Great for Vols fans, great for the players, and of course, ended up being our national championship year. And that defense that Florida had over, and was getting several first rounders and several second rounders, and guys went on to win Super Bowl. So in T. Martin's defense, he was going up against some top dogs
And it was,
that had NFL careers.
It was what, his third game?
It was a third game.
Yeah,
so I mean,
he was 9 of 23, I believe. It was a bad day as a passer, but the defense, Al Wilson, I think he forced 2 fumbles that day, 3 fumbles that day.
Yeah.
They had 6 turnovers, Florida did, and then of course Steve Spurrier had that run with kickers, and he didn't care about kickers.
Yep.
He cared about a kicker that night because his kicker missed the field goal in overtime, and the Vols brought down the goalpost.
Tennessee was so opportunistic because it was the Sean Bryson run, and as you mentioned, single-digit passes completed. But boy, when Tennessee needed a big pass completed, T. Martin did that.
Yes, they did.
He delivered.
All right, number 3 on my list. So we've gone through. Well, I'll recap in a minute. Number 3. It's another ugly game, penalties, sloppy. I remember reading Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe the next day talked about if this is what a BCS national championship game is going to be, let's go back to just having the bowls. But the meaning of a national championship game win is pretty good. Now, I only have this number 3 in terms of my favorite all-time games because, again, this is one where I'm sitting there in Columbus, Ohio, watching it, and people by that point had realized I'm a Tennessee guy. So that's the reason I hate Ohio State to this day, because they gave me such unholy crap for an entire year. All I heard was Cleatgate when I moved up there due to the Ohio State Citrus Bowl.
That's right.
So to me, it was an incredible victory. I can't repeat what my buddy, after that win, perhaps there were victory cigars involved and maybe a little some sort of drinkage, but he goes out in the middle of a subdivision. This is after the game at like 2 o'clock in the morning. He throws open the door and yell some things at Ohio State fans. I don't know if he was thrown out by the homeowners association or not, but Mike, you remember what you said.
His homeowners association fees definitely went up.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's one that if we were doing most important or best, meaningful game, whatever. Obviously, that's number 1. It's a national championship. But in terms of my favorites, I wasn't there. If you were there, I'm sure it ranks as number 1. Okay, there you go. So not my favorite, but it was on. Is that number 1 on your list?
Yes, it is.
There you go. Let's take over.
Well, and I mean, because along with the culmination of the '98 season, there are also the things that now are historic footnotes. John Ward's last game, the ability to be on site as we were. Jimmy and I did sports talk the entire week leading up to it. It was remarkable. Brent Hubbs was also still part of our mix before he went on to do great things with VolQuest, and so it was just this collection, the week leading up to it, and I mean, it was one of the rare instances where I was in the booth for the entire game. So to be able to be on hand, witness John's last performance, and again, see Tennessee bring home the national championship. It is one of one.
I'm going. You may say, don't tell this story, and we won't. I'll let you tell the story. But I was just going to ask. I'm a man who collects weird stuff, as you've seen on the walls of all of our studios. I collect weird stuff. It started out. It's not like, oh wow, look at all the money they've spent. It's like, no, a lot of this is I go to a game, I save a program, or I save. I went to a Colts Patriots game after Deflategate, and all the Colts fans had deflated football foam hats. Well, I've got one of those because the Patriots won the game, so I got a scalp. So weird stuff. Can you tell what the weird thing that you took? Are you okay telling that? The statute of limitations is gone.
Sure enough.
And for years, I have wanted you to loan me this so I could put it in my house with a note that said, you said, put a note under that says, on loan from the John Wilkerson collection.
Correct. So, John was one that went to mouthwash, Listerine, throughout the course of the broadcast. He had a water cup and he had a Listerine cup. And so he had one that was clear and he had the other one that just had a piece of duct tape around it so he could tell which one was which. Well, anyhow, as they're cleaning out the booth, I decide to go ahead and take the clean cup and I put it inside the other. So I have. And the thing is, I hate to say this, it might be, I haven't been able to put my hands on it.
You can't find it?
I can't find it. I've looked so many different places. I know it's there.
How else are people going to clone John Ward in the future? You have his spittle, his DNA somewhere.
That's here nowadays.
Yeah, wow. That's,
I just have the cups, didn't do anything. I just one, the clean one and the empty one in front of the other. But yeah, I was just like, I'm going to take that with me.
It was when you chloroformed him and took his towel, I thought you probably crossed the line. But that is a great souvenir. Your thoughts on the 98? I mean, I don't know of anyone who loves Tennessee as much as you do. I've never met anyone. I know plenty of people who love Tennessee. None can even come close. If you're the sun, they are maybe Jupiter. There's no Mercury or Mars. Nobody's that close. Well, what were you doing the night of the 98 National Championship game?
You're going to be surprised by this, John P. That game, I watched it from UT Hospital. I was in the hospital that week and almost died from double pneumonia.
Oh, wow.
I was supposed to go to the game, couldn't make it. I couldn't breathe. And then I was supposed to do a big New Year's Eve party here. Had to get a substitute DJ. I'm in the hospital for double pneumonia and all kind of stuff going on. And so I finally came to a point after they gave me all these things and the game was on. I had a whole bunch of friends in the hospital room with me watching the game. And that made me feel a whole lot better. I think I got out 2 days earlier than I was supposed to because we won the game.
Win one for the Pearl.
Yeah. I was about to say, we need to go to the Fox Sports injury jazz. that music they go to. We'll be right back. I'm glad you had folks in there with you. So that made it a little better, I would think.
Oh, even better, man. We had a great time. Nurses were having a good time with us, and it was a good deal, man. And so I was happy when they won the national championship.
Yeah. Jumping around, they came in, put a coat on it.
It's like Dennis Hopper and Hoosiers. All right, so that's my number 3. That's your number 1. Was that on your list?
My number 2.
That's your number 2.
Number 2.
Okay. Are those the only one? Have you had any of my other ones on there?
The Auburn 85.
Okay.
That's my number. That was my number 6.
And the only one you've had is 98 Florida State.
Correct.
Okay. My number 2, and it will never be repeated. You can have great comebacks.
Actually, Florida State and Auburn. So that's,
okay, you had the Auburn 85.
My 1 and 2.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, you had Auburn 85 as your number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. My number 2, it can never be repeated. You can have amazing comebacks, but they were the number 5 team in the nation. It was in South Bend. Touchdown Jesus. Johnny Majors made the joke afterwards that somebody told him touchdown Jesus was doing this in the end zone after the missed kick. Max Parrott was one. I didn't remember that. Okay. So Tennessee wins at Notre Dame 35-34. They're down 31-7, and Notre Dame is about to make it 34-7. They're trying a field goal. It's blocked. I believe Floyd Miley is the guy that returns it back. He's actually been on the Sports Source. Yes. And then at the end of the game, Tennessee has roared all the way back. The fantastic screen call that Fulmer dials up where Aaron Hayden just walks into the end zone, pointing at the camera as he goes, and you think, wow, what an incredible comeback. And then Notre Dame comes right down the field. They're in field goal range, but Jeremy Lincoln's backside blocks the final field goal. And John Ward, we did a show, the iSports Live that you and I did. Mike Keith had him on, and I was producing the show, and we prepared all these great calls. And I put that one in there. And I was young and stupid. I didn't think that he would hate that call because he got it wrong. And I remember John Ward laughed about it. We played that, and he comes back from break. We just played it, and we're showing it. And he's doing this, and he said, I still picture farmers falling off their tractors, thinking that we had lost.
Turning off the radio.
Yeah, it killed him. But he quickly said, it is good. No, it is no good. Tried to reiterate it was no good. That win at Notre Dame, it was memorialized in the videotape Miracle at South Bend. If you haven't seen it, find it somewhere, probably on YouTube. Mm-hmm. That Notre Dame game, number 2 on my all-time list, one of my favorite games ever in terms of favorite big-time Tennessee wins. Is that on either of your lists?
Number 5 for me.
Okay.
Number 3.
Okay.
And, Mike Stoll being in there, the fact that he took his jersey and just put it in a bag, so he just gave it to his mom, and it's like, don't lose this.
And it's still, I think he's got it framed with the grass stains and he's got blood stains.
Blood, it's all right there.
He's got everything.
On the train, baby.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you remember where you were in that one, 91? You were in the team, weren't you?
No,
that was your first year out.
I was out my first year out.
90
And
was
I'm
your last
watching the game in Tallahassee with Moses Collins.
Moses Collins.
Moses Collins
We
in
mentioned
Tallahassee.
Tony Robinson earlier. Moses Collins was the guy who broke all of his high school records
All
at
of his high school records.
De Leon High School in Tallahassee, I believe.
I know it's
And-
Tallahassee.
And Moses Collins came in here, and I think he broke his leg on a kick return.
Yeah, he got hurt. Moses got hurt.
Boy, the stuff, I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner yesterday, but that kind of crap pops in.
Well, and that's one of the cool things about that game, because I think when it comes to this list, that one is right there, and it's hard to top as to where were you when this happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that kind of a just shock that went out, a shockwave. And I can tell you this, I didn't get to see the game as it played, because at that point in time, today it'd be called a side gig, I was doing PA for Lady Vols volleyball. So I'm at Alumni Gym.
Wow.
And they have a match. I have no idea why there's a Saturday afternoon match, but there is. And so anyhow.
So you were thrilled.
At one point in time, I mean, everybody for Sports Information's over watching this on a small television.
Okay, yeah.
And they erupt when they start the comeback. And at one point, the coach had to turn around and say, hey,
going on?
calm it down. You're here
Wow.
for this team, not that
hell
one.
yeah.
And then anyhow, at the very end, I had a little fun with it because, and I always hate this, is when somebody gives the lower score first. So anyhow, I had updated the score at the half, and there was a ripple through the Alumni Gym that was just like, oh, because I mean Tennessee's down big. And then I got to give the final score. Final score from South Bend: Notre Dame 34, Tennessee 35, and it was just bam. I mean, for the couple of hundred people that were there,
All the parents.
they made a lot of noise.
That was.
But I couldn't believe it as I actually finally got to see it.
Yeah.
And so I know exactly where I was while it happened, and then I really enjoyed watching it afterwards.
And I just wonder how many people who claim to have watched it now actually turned it off in anger at the time. Because I know some folks who did.
I know a lot of players I played with that did that. I know a lot of players I played with that did that. And boy, back then didn't have the access that you have now to rewatch something. Didn't have that back then. So you had to wait for the highlights, and you wish you could saw the journey, seeing the journey versus just seeing the highlights. But I know a lot of players I played with turned that game on. Can you remember, like I said, back then you had a couple of games on. So if one game was bad, you turned to the good game, you know.
I think that one was an NBC, who would have worked with Bill Walsh, and who would have been the main play-by-play guy? Dick Enberg. I think that was Enberg and Walsh, wasn't it? It was somebody in Bill Walsh. I remember Bill Walsh on that call, I'm pretty sure. We'll go back and look, and it'll be Joe Schmidlap. But all right, so
Schmidlap.
Schmidlap does a great job.
Yeah, Schmidlap.
All right, now here's one that I'm gonna. This is my number one, and all of mine are older because once everybody's got a different role. Once I started covering the team and launched the Sports Source, then it's like UT comes and grabs somebody off your show and puts them on the Vol Network and says you can't have them anymore. And there are times when I want to do something, they're like, no, you can't do that. So you're kind of, all right, so we're going to be competitors a little bit.
So jaded.
I am jaded. So it's like, and not to mention the fact, I don't want to be a fan doing it. No, you're an unabashed fan and you're on the show.
Yeah.
You pull for UT.
Without question.
Yeah. Me, everybody's different. And I kind of put up a wall there, so it's not like I just don't get the kick out of it I used to. So all mine are 98 or before, but I can see where one from last year would compare to this one. Now, I want to throw out two here at once because I'm guessing you two will have one of these on there. 1980, you'll have both of them, I bet. 1985, 35-7 win over Miami in the Sugar Bowl. To me, that's my number one. There's nothing even close. It's the first time that Tennessee was a top 10 team. So you were back, but you're going against the number 2 team. Nobody gave you a shot.
Right.
They were
They're going
allowed.
to win the national championship.
They just listened to Jimmy Johnson.
Yes.
That's all. The pregame talk was just them talking about why they should be number 1.
Yeah.
And to go out and drill them, to hammer them 35-7. I was a 14-year-old kid. Tennessee had never won an SEC championship in my lifetime. I didn't know what a Sugar Bowl was. So for Tennessee to be in the Sugar Bowl against Miami, a team that was loathed at the time because they ran their mouth, they show up a couple years later and Penn State does the same thing to them when they show up in battle fatigues. It was one of those events where, oh my gosh, we're back. We're really back. So, you beat Auburn earlier in that year, but that's an upset. Then you go from that Auburn game, you propel forward. You beat Alabama. You lose Tony Robinson. You keep going forward. You win the SEC.
Wow.
You go to New Orleans and you beat Miami. It was just a moment in time that sealed it. We are back as a program, and it was. And they went on to win 2 more SEC titles in the next 3 or 4 years, I think. So it launched the winning days when you were there.
Yeah.
And to me, I compare it to the closest I would come to putting a game on here, just because I could appreciate it, would be the 2022 Alabama game, which I think is sort of similar to this one in that both of those games for their generation was, okay, we're good, we've gotten better, but how good are we? You're as good as anybody. Okay, but do you do anything with it? And you look at what they've done since that 2022 Alabama game. You've gone to number 1 in the nation for a week, but you hadn't been there since '98. Yeah. You beat Clemson in Orange Bowl. You're back in a big boy game. You get a playoff berth. You've won 10 games 2 of the last 3 years. That 2022 Alabama game, for people who aren't old enough to understand that 85 Tennessee-Miami game, it's the 2022 Alabama game to my generation. That's what that Miami game was. And I think that 40 years from now, you're going to have people talking about that 2022 Alabama game as, do you remember where you were?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
To me, my number 1 is Miami. I didn't want to step on that, but I needed to make that comparison for people to understand. If you weren't around for that 85 game, I think that, and you may disagree, and we'll get to your thoughts here in a second, but I want to do the run through. Let me recap what I had. I'll pop it up here. Do you want to know 1? There we go. 6 was the Florida game in the rain, 92. 5 was beating number 1 Auburn in 85. 4 was beating Florida Pandemonium Rains. 3 was the Florida State National Championship game in the Fiesta Bowl. 2, Miracle at South Bend in 91. And number 1, the 85 Sugar Bowl. And before we get to these guys and their lists and any other games we might want to throw out, I do want to mention thanks to Hearthside Bank. Hearthside Bank is the founder of the feast when it comes to the Sports Source Digital Network and to this show in particular. All of the Vols shows that I host are going to be Hearthside Bank shows. Folks, if you believe in personalized banking, if you want to have a partner who has a commitment to helping you reach your financial needs, Hearthside Bank is the place to go. I grew up as a child in Middlesboro, Kentucky. They have been in Middlesboro for decades and decades and decades. They have been in Southeast Kentucky. They have been in Upper East Tennessee. They've been in our side of East Tennessee. And now they're in Farragut. You can visit them from Farragut all the way up into Southeast Kentucky. They got branches all over, always within reach. Hearthside Bank. Visit them at hearthsidebank.com today. You'll be happy you did. Okay. Now, I'm going to go. Who wants to go next? Who wants to follow up their list? Sterling, as the guest?
What's incredible is you got 4 of my top 6 on the list right there. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a great sports mind, but they say great minds speak alike. So hey, I'm right here with John Key on this list.
That's an insult to you.
Oh, no, that's a compliment, baby. I'm sitting there with 2 almanacs when it comes to UT athletics. My number 2 game is the 98 Sugar Bowl. 98 Sugar Bowl, 98 National Championship, National Championship.
Fiesta Bowl.
And then my number 3 game is the 85 Auburn game, in which I've personally got an intimate relationship with Tennessee, watching that happen, and the Tennessee Vols deal. Then you got my number 4 game is Notre Dame.
Okay.
I didn't play in that game, but man, my goodness gracious. All right. And then you got the Miami game. You talked about the Miami game.
All right, so you had the same Sugar, Fiesta, Notre Dame, and the 85 Auburn that I had. Mm-hmm. Who were the 2 that you had? The other 2 that you had?
Well, the other one that I have, and it's been a long time, was my freshman year when I started against Ole Miss, 87. Ole Miss. People forget Ole Miss came in as the number 1 defense in the nation.
Yeah, they weren't top 10, but I'll allow them.
but
it has to be top 10, but I'm going to allow it because
they weren't.
Yes, you get the participatory.
They weren't top 10. They weren't then. I thought they were.
Well, no, I don't not ranked, not as a team, but they might have been defense.
Okay.
And you lit them up.
Well,
you ate them alive, Sterling.
Well, Coach. I'm going to tell you why. These are reasons I think where I'm glad Coach Hype was really embracing bringing back old players. So as a young guy, in New Jersey, when we first got cable, we were able to watch CFL. So, I got a chance to fall in love with Condredge Holloway, man.
Toronto Argonauts.
Are you kidding me? Condredge was that man. He was that man. And, you got to remember back then, that style of a quarterback wasn't highlighted as much. So I had a chance to watch him do his thing, man.
It was still 4 or 5, no, I don't want to bring up bad memories, but it was still a few years before Doug Williams became the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
Way before, because I was in college back when that happened. So I had my 8th grade year to my high school senior year to watch Condredge do his thing in Canada. I would run home to watch a CFL game. And so, we just had started the week prior against Louisville, but I'm nervous because they got Moss, they got Jeff Harrod, they got Stevan Moore. These are all first-round draft choices to the NFL on that Ole Miss defense. I remember it because, you're in it.
Prep for it first.
And so now it's homecoming. Coach Harris and Coach Gruden is on my case all week. You got to go against these guys. And people that were around, they know how they stayed in my case. And I'm like, man, I'm nervous because, it's homecoming. It's Ole Miss. Everybody knows Moss, he's from Memphis, and we have the team from Memphis. Yeah. And Harrod is the top linebacker almost in the nation that year. And then Stevan Moore was one of the first big DBs other than him and Kevin Porter at Auburn to be fast. And so these are things I'm dealing with. And so then pregame, Coach Gruden pulls me aside and says, "Hey, Sterling, somebody wants to meet you." I said, "Wants to meet me? What you talking about? Who wants to meet me?" I'm thinking about, my brain's going.
Yeah.
He said, "Condredge Holloway wants to meet you." I said, "Condredge Holloway wants to meet you?" Man, get out of here. You gotta be kidding me. This is a true story, man. You guys don't understand. This meant the world to me. So a guy in a leather jacket and some shades on walks up to me. "Hey, man, I'm Condredge." "Are you kidding me? I met Condredge Holloway." So in my mind, there's no way in the world I'm gonna play bad in front of Condredge Holloway. You look. Forget how much I knew and didn't know about the game plan. There was no way in the world Sterling was going to play bad in front of Condredge Holloway. Cancel Christmas. It wasn't going to happen. And so I say that because now I see Coach Heupel is really digging into the guys. And we've got a whole faction of guys that have, unfortunately, have less memory inside Vol Nation. Yeah. And a patch of guys that gave blood, sweat, and tears for this program. Yeah. And he's reaching back to him, man. So that's a blessing. And you never know who impacts who to make sure we get an extra inch to win a game.
Well, no wonder that's on your list. That's pretty good. That's a good story. You've almost convinced me. I will say this, though. We talked about Tony Robinson. There in '87 when you came in, Jeff Francis got hurt. Yeah. No offense to Jeff Francis. But that would have 87, I was 16 years old. I was writing for the Etowah Enterprise, and I remember they wanted me to do Little League Baseball and everything else, and I didn't care. So I was all for just UT stuff. And I wrote something about, okay, you can't go back to Jeff Francis. If the way you played, you had 2 games where you just looked fantastic.
And I was thankful to have the opportunity, and I will say this in Jeff's defense. I had my best week of practice after that Ole Miss game. I was the best version of Sterling Henton that ever happened in practice at University of Tennessee. It was Jeff's comeback week, and I was supposed to start. And they made it a game time decision to start Jeff, and Jeff actually practiced better than I did.
Jeff's a good quarterback. There's no question. He wasn't dynamic. But you were dynamic in that age. You were dynamic. Well, you're dynamic now, man. What was your last one?
My number one. The game they told us they were going to fire our head coach when we got back. 89 UCLA. And I
almost had that on my list.
Yeah.
As they salute, because one, I loved it. I loved that game. Yeah. But also because I remember a certain quarterback on his birthday.
On my birthday.
Going around left in the Rose Bowl. Football in hand.
Hey, man.
Happy feeding into the end zone, doing the kind of stomp as you go in there. UCLA in the Rose Bowl, 24-6 was the final score in 1989.
We were underdog by 21 points, and then I made a mistake. At that time, Chris Fowler was covering game day, and so they came down, interviewed me, and my roommate Reggie and a couple other guys were in Bud Ford's office at the time, and I just said, we're not losing. So Coach Majors got word of that, and so he actually stopped the team and made me run in front of the team before practice started that Tuesday. And you don't get my bulletin board. I said, Coach, I'm not losing on my birthday. Then I found out it was Roland Pole's birthday. And I found out it was Mark Jones' birthday. And our academic advisor, Richard Westbrook, it was his birthday.
Man, everybody's getting a shout out today.
And I don't know. Sometimes I'm a cup half full guy all the time, and I tell you, I never played a game I lost. I'm just not undefeated.
That '89 UCLA game. One of the things people forget. That was the year you guys had started 0-6 in '88. Majors cleans house or shifts his staff around.
Yes.
And then you opened. You'd won your last 5 in '88.
5 in a row,
but still, it was like. Yeah, but it was the back half of the schedule. It was that traditional Ole Miss, Kentucky, Vandy. Nobody really took it seriously. It's a nice turnaround. It was enough to save Majors. It wasn't enough to save Ken Donahue, but they moved on to the next year. And as you say, UCLA was top 10 at the time. That's I think they were number 6.
Six in the nation, yeah.
Number 6 on their home field. And back then, it's like, oh, the Rose Bowl, man. You get to play in the Rose Bowl.
And at the time, John P., there's never been a Vol to even score in the Rose Bowl.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because they've gone to 2 bowl games and not scored.
14-0.
The one thing I remember, and I always give credit to the, now it's called VFL Films, but back in the day it was just UT's video department. They were so good.
Yeah.
They did, it was a kind of a hit song just a year or two before, but the Coaches Show opened with a music video of all the highlights played to Randy Newman's I Love L.A. I remember it to this day. I can't hear I Love L.A. without seeing the highlights of that game, including feet going into the end zone, man.
And to this day, I still feel bad about that because I was looking in the sky when I did that, and I missed the young guy putting his hand out trying to high five me. I didn't realize that I saw the highlight of the run.
That's how you kind of
I felt bad about that. Yeah, I felt bad. I still feel bad about that.
Well, now he's a 40-year-old guy, and he just heard that. So
I hope he heard it, and I apologize, my friend. I didn't see you. I really apologize. That touched me.
John, okay, how many games have we covered on your list?
4.
Okay, so you got 2 that you want to throw out here.
Yeah, as far as my number 1 would be the national championship game, 1998. My 2 is the Tennessee win over Auburn. 3, the miracle at South Bend. 4 is 2001, Tennessee 34, Florida 32. And there's just so much that goes into it. Now, I look at the top 3 as wonderful accomplishments for Tennessee, and that's where, it strikes every bit of your blood runs orange, and it's your heart, everything like that. Then you get to number 4, and that's where you can add a little bit of pettiness or a lot of pettiness into it. Because not only is it huge that Tennessee stuns Florida, they're a significant, and this is a very highly regarded Tennessee team, but taking on the number 2 Gators, they're expected to ascend to the throne. They are the pick to win the national championship, and winning the East is a formality.
Huge favorites over a good Tennessee. Tennessee was number 4.
Right.
And Florida's number 2, and it was something like an 18-point line. It was some crazy line that made no sense in the world.
So Tennessee goes down there, finds the way to win, and they go for too late. Doesn't happen. But anyhow, what folks may not attach to that game, it was Steve Spurrier's last SEC game in Gainesville.
Wow.
As their head coach. He beats Maryland or whoever in the bowl game, and he takes a check and goes to D.C. That loss chased him from Gainesville.
Wow. And do you remember, he made a comment when he left. He's like, well, when you get to the point that you're 10-2 and that's not good enough anymore, it's time to move on.
That's it.
And it was like, yeah, we lost to Tennessee. We had a good year, it's 10-2, but that's not good enough. So, all right, I'm out.
Yes.
So he was kind of if this isn't good enough for you Florida fans, I'm going. But you nailed it. The irony, after Spurrier had owned Phillip Fulmer, and he came back to South Carolina and beats him on Peyton Manning's jersey retirement. Spurrier had Tennessee's number.
Yes.
But that's one where Fulmer can always say, I was the one that ran you out of Florida.
His last game against Tennessee as the head coach of the Gators, that was it. And so that's my number 4.
Okay.
My number 5 would be the victory over Miami in the Sugar Bowl. And then my number 6 is 1997. Tennessee overcomes 6 turnovers to defeat Auburn in their first ever appearance in the SEC championship game and their first ever SEC championship in the different format.
I was there for that game, and I thought about it. It was such a sloppy game, and it was disappointing. It's funny, so many of these games were kind of ugly, but Auburn was not. So that was one where Auburn gave you a bigger scare than they were supposed to.
Yes, exactly.
But I remember the culmination there was you wanted Manning. Everything was put on his shoulders. Anytime they lost to Florida, it was Manning that lost to Florida. It was good to see him get a trophy.
Correct.
That was the thing about that night is it was good to see him win it. Now, when he went to the Colts and I'm pulling for the Patriots, I was happy to never see him win it. But, at the time, that was kind of the – you talk about win one for Pearl, win one for the Gipper. That was win one for Peyton.
It was.
And for him to get a championship meant a lot. It's a shame he even played in that stupid Orange Bowl with the Bursa sack.
And you should have
That
been there in
his final
92.
game.
I mean, you could have
Oh,
easily
yes,
have been there in 92 when you look at who you beat that year, but also who you lost to. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. But anyhow, that was it. That was, to me, the fact that it was. Tennessee could not clear Florida as a hurdle. Then they finally get in. And I mean, that's what, the fifth or the sixth? I think it's the sixth SEC championship game. It just seemed like forever.
Yeah, well, it'd always been Florida and Alabama,
right?
Basically.
They were there.
So, but anyhow, Tennessee getting to the SEC championship game, overcoming the 6 interceptions or the 6 turnovers, and still finding a way to win. So, for that to be Peyton's final game, big SEC game. That would be on my list. Now, the others that kind of came close, I really loved the '98 SEC championship game. Over Mississippi State.
They give you a scare.
Yep.
You had to pull away. That team was always in so many close games, but just had enough to get past everybody that played. Yeah, it was a
way to win, baby.
The Hurricane Rita game, the LSU win in overtime, where you travel down on the same day.
That was my number 7.
Yeah.
That was the closest to making my list, and that was when I'm still doing the Sports Source, but it was just such a remarkable. It was a Monday night. They wound up playing it.
Right.
You fall behind. You look beat, and to come back down there with Rick. Was it Rick Clausen?
It
Rick
is.
Clausen.
Rick came back.
Yeah. I always
Rick
did this
did
last
that.
week, and it was right. And
Rick did that. He should get a lot more praise for what he did in that game.
And I believe that stands as Tennessee's largest second-half deficit in which they won on the road.
Because he had payback against a school that pretty much kicked him to the side,
Exactly.
came up here, went down there and did that. Rick should get more accolades than what he gets for that.
I remember the post-game interview. It was him and Fulmer. I probably shouldn't bring this up, but I'm not getting paid by UT or by Phillip Fulmer. Everybody knows there were people who felt that it should have been Clausen the starter that year instead of Ainge. Now, Ainge came back the next 2 years with David Cutcliffe and was spectacular. But in 2005, he had his struggles. And there were a lot of people on the team who thought it should have been Clausen, including Clausen, who after that game, I remember Phillip Fulmer, you can find it on YouTube, where he's saying something like, well, we always had faith he could come out and do it. And Clausen was all but this. Don't touch me. I mean, it was the smoothest. He was like, he listened to him with this kind of a face and then turns to the camera and goes, yeah, I played for my teammates tonight. I'm believing it. It was one of those where, ooh, there is some tension in the room or in the building.
A tad chilly.
Yeah, a little chilly. What other games you got on your close but no cigar list?
Yeah, the close but no cigar list was one where everybody had the cigar, and that was the 22 Alabama game. And it's just for torching
I'm shocked that wasn't on your list.
A Nick Saban defense the way they did. Jalen Hyatt doing everything. So that one was so close. But again, we were talking about favorites. And so that one. And then the other one, I was kind of surprised that this one bubbled to the surface. 2004. Tennessee goes to Athens and defeats number 3 Georgia 19-14. And you talk about an opponent that gave you so little regard for the ability to do what you did. Yeah. I just remember, wow, those guys wearing black socks are going to be really unhappy tonight. David Green kept trying to lead the team back, and you kept waiting for it to be the play where somebody falls down in orange or whatever, and it just never happened. And it was just, oh my gosh, that to me was one of the most unexpected and most appreciated wins, even more so than the Hail Mary, just because that was, again, you had so little regard by the team on the other sideline for what you were capable of.
Let me run through some of these. We'll just run through a couple of them that weren't here. We had a master list of like 40 games that fit the criteria: championship game, bowl game, or top 10 opponent. Or if it's your first start and Condrich Holloway talked to you before the game, that goes on the list too.
And I'll say the one that almost made it was 1995. Play number 1.
Alabama. They were number 11, I think.
So 14.
Okay, so that's why it didn't go.
That's right, and I understand. It was so close.
Yeah.
So close.
So I think we'll probably do 6 favorite Bama games at some point.
41-14 was the final, and there's, as you are making your way out of the capstone. As you approach, it says Chattanooga 41 miles and whatever Alabama town 14. At 41-14, I always wish that I had the wherewithal just to go ahead and drop over the sheet that says Tennessee 41, Alabama 14. As you get to North Alabama, there's that mile marker. Chattanooga 41, whatever, yada, yada, 14.
Or you just jump out with that spray can you always carry.
Always carry.
So you're always tagging buildings.
Graffiti artist.
Yeah.
When the spirit moves me.
Wilksy, we call it. 1986, there's one that's forgotten. Bowl game win over Minnesota and Ricky Foggy. 21-14, 86. 87, 27-22 win over Indiana in the Peach Bowl. Yeah. I was there for that one, and I remember they had a...
and that's Fulton County Stadium.
Yes, it was Fulton County Stadium, which you loved.
And that was the day that they actually had us all stand around and broke ground for the Georgia Dome.
Oh, really?
That week they had us broke ground for the Georgia Dome, and there was a lot of talk going around how some friends in higher up positions at UT took the Peach Bowl. They had friends in Atlanta that wanted to build the Georgia Dome, had to sell 50,000 tickets. I don't know. That was a rumor to us. We thought we were going to the Cotton Bowl that year. That's a true story.
The thing I remember about that game, there was a halftime. Their halftime entertainment was some nightclub singer. It was as bad as Bill Murray, and he came out and he did, instead of New York State of Mind, he sang, "I'm in a Peach Bowl state of mind." And even at 16, I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, this is horrible." So,
welcome to the beautiful Blue Room.
1989 was 24-6 over UCLA. The Arkansas win in the Cotton Bowl, 31-27 against number 10. What a shootout that was. That was a fun game. But I left one out there. 1989, this one came close to making it. And there's a story you have. It was the Cobb-Webb game, pouring rain. Tennessee beats Auburn 21-14. Auburn was ranked number 4. That's back when Auburn's getting mentioned a lot. So for people who are younger and don't remember, you played Auburn at the start of every season. It became Florida or Georgia. For years, it was Auburn. I hated when that rivalry went away. And that win, there was a classic. They give it to Reggie Cobb, your roommate.
Yeah.
Who just takes it just blows by everybody, gets into the end zone.
My helmet had to get fixed. I was out that play.
You were out
that play.
That's what I was going to say. You were out and getting your helmet fixed, and Andy Kelly came in to hand it off.
And what I like most about that play, this was something that to this day, Coach Cuckler recalls it. At the time, he was the running backs coach. He wasn't even the quarterbacks. He was the running backs coach then. And it was 3rd and 17, and of course, like I said, Auburn had them incredible defenses, and they were doing a bunch of flex movements and disguise and stuff. And I checked out of a crossing route passing play to a running play, draw play, and Chuck takes it for 25 on 3rd and 17. I said, Coach, it was wide open. I mean, I had to get to it. I could have checked back to me and ran it, but I figured Chuck's a little faster.
I was in the stands there. I was a college student and stupid. My only rain protection, we didn't really care, was a garbage bag that we'd kind of ripped open. It's like, that didn't keep you dry at all. But it was still a favorite memory of mine was being there and watching that game. 1990, it's 7-3 at halftime, and then Dale Carter takes the second half kickoff back against Florida. Vaughn Reeves throws a touchdown. Yeah. That was the biggest ass kicking of Florida I've ever seen in my life. 45-3, Tennessee wins that game. Sugar Bowl, the incredible comeback against Virginia, 23-22. Was that like your last game?
That was my last game. It was my last game.
I remember Pickens caught the touchdown that put him ahead, and he did the same kind of foot stomp you did at the Rose Bowl. I don't want to run through all these.
We didn't mention the Cotton Bowl. That was also a big favorite because Chuck Webb is the offensive player of the game, and Carl Pickens is the defensive player of the game because he had moved to the secondary and did wonderful things for the Vols defense that year. But that's always been a personal favorite, and one that really enjoyed because that was before they were carpetbagging and joined the SEC.
It's funny how the last game in the Southwest Conference.
Yeah,
it was Southwest.
Yeah, it was much more interesting when they were in the other conference. Yeah. I don't want to run through all these, but let's see if there's any more that
you got to put all these up though, John P. You got to let people see these games are awesome, man.
Let's just run through them very quickly then. 23-22 over Virginia. We mentioned Notre Dame in 91. The 92 Florida game, I mentioned that was a downpour. 92, they beat Boston College in the bowl game. That was Phillip Fulmer's first official coaching game. They beat Virginia Tech 1994 in the Gator Bowl that was in Gainesville.
Right.
That was my first time on air on WBIR. I had to get up the next morning to do the AM News sportscast. And I remember watching that game and thinking, what a perfect game to do, because Manning that was like, he'd been improving throughout the year, but in that bowl game, it was like, oh gosh, this guy's going to be special. Ohio State 95 in the Citrus Bowl, that's way up there. 1996, 20-13 win over number 7 Alabama.
Yes.
Beat Northwestern in a Citrus Bowl. The Auburn SEC Championship we mentioned in 97. All the 98 games, 20-17 over Florida in overtime. 22-3, they whooped number 7 Georgia. The Clint Sterner game almost made my list.
Yeah, and it should be. I mean,
that's the most, I think if we did memorable and not favorite, that's on there.
Yeah, it's a moment.
Then you got Mississippi State, the SEC title game you mentioned. Florida State in the national championship game. 99, they beat number 10 Georgia 37-20. They beat Alabama 21-7. They were number 10 in 99. 2001, you had the Florida game that you mentioned. You also beat Michigan, beat the devil out of Michigan in that Citrus Bowl.
Ran over them and past them.
Yeah. 2003, a game I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, was the Miami win at the Orange Bowl when you snapped their 40-something game home win streak.
And that was the biggest moment since '85.
Hit him in the mouth.
Not
since '98.
Yeah, since '98.
Yeah.
One of our first shows with the sports source.
That was it.
Hit him in the mouth, baby.
That's right. He came in and did the sports source, and we did this thing called Eat the Mascot at the time.
Yep.
And they were the Hurricanes, so we just had fake hurricanes on set. Or it might have been real hurricanes. But it was my first year, so I kind of did stupid things. But anyway, Pearl was on there, and the whole thing, we were all thinking, there's no way you're going to beat Miami. He thought they could, and the whole thing was, got to hit him in the mouth.
Hit him in the mouth.
Hit him in the mouth, JP.
Hit him in the mouth, JP. That's right, baby. What we do, we hit him in the mouth, Jonathan. Yes, sir.
Hit him in the mouth. 30-28 over Florida. We mentioned that one a couple weeks ago. That was the last-second field goal after missing an extra point earlier. Where am I? 2004. The Georgia win you mentioned. 2004, 38-7 win in the Cotton Bowl over Texas A&M. 05 was the LSU win in overtime of the Hurricane Rita game. 06, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. 35-18, Cal comes in here, number 9. That was David Cutcliffe's return. That was another one of those. Oh, we're back. 08 was the losing season. And then,
because
05 was the
thinking,
losing
hey,
season.
why don't we go up to Dollywood? Why don't we check out Gatlinburg? And it's like a little vacation for them.
Wasn't
To
Beast
hear
Mode on
Jason
that team?
Swain talk about it, it's hilarious.
Wasn't Beast Mode on that team?
Yes.
Yeah. Shut him
Sure
down.
was.
Yeah, he was.
51-30.
He did not jump into a golf cart and drive around that.
2006, 51-33 over top 10 Georgia. 2007, beating Wisconsin in the Outback Bowl, 21-17. 2014, they beat Iowa in the Tax Slayer Bowl. 2015, they beat Northwestern 45-6. Northwestern was number 12. It was your first big game win in a long time. 2016, you got a Music City Bowl win over Nebraska. It was so big that Butch Jones got carried off on the players' shoulders.
Yes.
Indiana 23-22. Don't look that up because it's been stricken from the record.
It didn't happen.
2022, 52-49 over Alabama. I can't believe that didn't make any of our lists. It's amazing. And then 31-14
Well, it made
Clemson.
mine. I said it was on mine.
The number 3 Alabama game, the beating Alabama 23. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Clemson, the Orange Bowl, Iowa 35-0, and then beating Alabama this past year 24-7. That is the complete list that we had. It's been 53 minutes. Somehow we wind up doing about the same 53 minutes every week. I want to tell people again, subscribe to the Sports Source Digital Network. That's how other Tennessee fans can find this. If you find this engaging or fun or just remembering these games, or you're sitting there going, what about that game? Put it in the comments section.
Yeah.
Let us know. But if you want other people to find this, hit notify, hit like, hit everything you can click. And don't click this. Click this. But leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel because we got tons of this kind of programming coming your way. And I want to thank my ever co-host on this show, John Wilkerson. It's great to be working with you again. And Sterling Henton.
Hey, John.
Good to see you outside of football season.
Hey, man, glad to be here, bro.
All day, every day.
Yeah, all day, every day, baby.
And what do? Hit him in the mouth. Hit him in the mouth. See you next time.